Welcome to MSP Unplugged, episode number 16, Winning at Sales. I'm your host, Jeff Halash. This is our live show where we discuss different ways to run your IT business, whether it's managed services, consulting, break fix, or anything in between. Our show today is brought to you by the 2020 annual TechCon Unplugged, bringing the community together. Get away from your business for a weekend of learning, fun, and some new relationships in a getaway retreat. Join like-minded owners to help your IT business thrive. Hear from experts and get one-on-one time with peers facing the same challenge as you are. Walk away with concrete action items to take your business to the next level. September 25th through the 27th, 2020. Yes, much later this year. It is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You can go to techconunplugged.com right now. Grab your tickets, get all your hotel information, and get a inexpensive hotel room. We've made everything as cheap as possible, but fully packed with fun food and everything else that you can think of for a place to rub shoulders and just hang out with your peers. Again, techconunplugged.com. Let me introduce the co-hosts. We have Paco Lebron from ProdigyTeks. Paco, how's it going?
Better than good, better than I deserve.
All right, man. And we also have John Fazio Jr. from Zorus. John, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. Thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome to have you. And we also have joining in with us Jennifer Bleam from MSP Sales Revolution. Jennifer, how you doing?
I am doing great. How are you?
I am doing excellent. It's a great day to be podcasting and hanging out on a Sunday evening, and I do appreciate you guys taking the time out. All right, we're going to start it off with a tip or story that we could learn from. And Paco, I'm going to shoot it over to you. What do you have for us this week?
I always forget about this part. No, I kid. So I know a lot of people have heard with the Paycheck Protection Program has been, the second round has been signed, and the SBA is looking to start funding as of tomorrow. Tip I basically would offer is that I know that a lot of people have been having some struggles with bigger banks and kind of waiting and kind of been in the unknown for what's going on. A tip that was given to me actually by Ken over at PAX 8, who we had on last week. He actually had mentioned, he shared an article from Channel E2E where they were saying, if you want to get funded and you want to get quick access and you don't want to have to fight to try and find a small bank, go through PayPal or go through Square, because they actually have lending opportunities and they are also participating in the SBA PPP program. So essentially, that's actually the advice that I followed, because I had been waiting from Bank of America, submitted all the documentation, hadn't heard anything. Actually applied on Wednesday. They actually informed me that, and this is another tip too, that my credit actually was locked. I had locked my credit for basically making sure that no one was going through due to a breach from a national on-site residential IT company I used to work for moons ago. Apparently they didn't tighten up. They got their stuff breached. So they offered free credit monitoring for the year. So I had it locked because of that reason. And then PayPal actually let me know that it was locked. So that actually hit a couple bulbs. So if you have your credit locked, you want to probably get that unlocked if you're applying for this program or any of these financing opportunities. But applied Wednesday, they informed me Thursday, got it unlocked that the same day, called them Friday. They wanted me to call them to let them know that they've been unlocked the credit, uploaded the documents Friday, got the promissory note Saturday morning. So I'm just now waiting to get funded from there, but everything got approved, got everything as far as the amount, and that was that. And it was a matter of 4 days. I kind of basically thank Ken, and then I've heard from our good friend Bruce Corson that he kind of followed the same steps, but he's still waiting to hear as well. So your mileage may vary, but going through these other two partners may be a better opportunity for you, because again, you can apply to as many as you want, but obviously you can only sign one promissory note to be able to collect on that SBA Paycheck Protection Program loan that possibly can be forgiven. So, and then coincidentally, 40 minutes later, Bank of America got back to me and let me know what was going on. So that was that. So that's my tip for today is for those that are in the waiting game and just kind of don't know what's going on. I was told PayPal and Square are good options, and I can attest that PayPal was a good option for us.
Very good. Good information there. John, do you have something for us this week?
Wow, definitely not like that. I mean, as far as, tips and stories and things like that, I think we were sort of just talking about it before, where, we're in a time now where a lot of people, there's, a lot of downtime. And I think that for the, kind of dreamers out there, the people that have always kind of wanted to do some things in their life, really looking at now as an opportunity to do that, as opposed to, sitting around and watching Netflix or, worrying about the fact that you're sitting at home. There's a lot of opportunities and things that I've been seeing online. There was I think it was like Mashable or something like that. There was a guitar course that was like $1,600 that they were giving out for like $32 or something like that. And like, just something small in that sense could, when this is all over, you can, be either growing a skill or you can be doing something that you always wanted to do, again, as opposed to kind of just being wrapped up in the fact that there is YouTube there and there is Netflix there and there are, opportunities to sit on your phone. Use it as a benefit. So, again, when this all is sort of over, at least slowed down, you can come out with something that you didn't think that you could have had coming in.
I couldn't agree with that more, and I'm feeling kind of guilty that I just went and watched all the Marvel movies over again in chronological order.
It's all good. It's all good.
Chronological order from when they were released, or the storyline of the actual movie?
The storyline of the actual movie. So I
Got
looked it up, made a list, and yeah, because I had time. So there's that.
We are doing that with Star Wars, and we are doing it in the chronological order, not the release order, because we're lending them to my parents who have never seen any of the movies, and so I have to. I'm rewatching them, which is a lot of fun because you pick up on things the second time and sixth time that you didn't see before that you forgot about, and then it leaves me able to answer some of my parents' questions. So same thing though. It's always, do you go chronological or release, and then some of the outliers, how do you weave those in? And it's probably easier with Star Wars than it is with Marvel. But
what was nice about it was you actually picked up on some things from movie to movie that kind of gave a cameo to another movie, and you're like, oh, that's why they said that this time, and it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it was interesting to watch it that way, and just something to do, take the time away. All right, Jennifer, do you have a tip or story for us this week?
I do. It's actually a story and a tip woven together. And so, John was just talking about spare time and trying to come up with a new skill potentially, or at least using our time valuably in this, a little bit of a dip. So for some people, it's an all out slowdown and they're almost on vacation or staycation, if you will. But there's a lot of conversation around pivoting and what is it going to look like for the IT channel and for MSPs and IT service providers to pivot if things need to dramatically change, and how a lot of the great changes in business and new businesses that are launched come out of a time of hardship. And so I've been trying to futurecast and figure out where some of those pivots can come from. And then I was having a conversation with a vendor last week, and he was sharing how he was in New York City right before they locked down, and it was sobering and downright frightening. And he was with someone who literally lost $500 million in the stock market that morning because it was during the tumble. And we were just talking about how all businesses are going to be careful about what they're spending and potentially thinning down their budgets a bit. And then he mentioned even the larger small businesses, those that have 200 employees, 500 employees, who maybe have an IT department and a security department, and they will probably do some consolidation. And my alarm bells went off in a very good way, because there is no reason that many IT support companies wouldn't be able to either take over the IT side or the security side for some of these larger small businesses, 200 seats, 500 seats. And so that may well represent a tremendous opportunity for our channel that wasn't there even 3 months ago. And so time will tell. If it was me, I think I would pull a list of those 500 seats and fewer companies, start going out to LinkedIn. It's probably too early to prospect them today, but start a punch list of those companies, maybe set up some Google alerts, and keep your ears peeled for those companies starting to downsize, starting to have board meetings. And if they're thinking in that direction, and you can ride in and say, hey, if you're thinking about downsizing, I'm actually less expensive than an employee, and I can probably do the job of 2 or 3 because of the automation tools I've got access to, or because of the SOC as a service, or because some of the other security tools that I have. And so I think that very well may be an opportunity. So time will tell for sure.
Very good. Yeah, take every opportunity you have available. I agree with everybody today. So mine is a little story, and I have it was an older computer, a 13-year-old Dell, that my neighbor is running a golf simulator out of, and he ordered this big golf simulator. It's got all the bells and whistles and the little indicators and stuff like that to watch the ball, and you got the screen and the video projector and all that. But the computer that runs it is 13 years old, and he was having some issues with the hardware, and I think he got that all sorted out. Well, the battery on this particular machine, I guess, went bad on the motherboard. And being 13 years old, that sounds pretty good. Now, normally, I do not work on computers this old, but being this is a neighbor, I do make exceptions from time to time. So he brings me this computer. He had already replaced the battery, and I went in, changed the time in the BIOS, ran some hardware diagnostics on it. Everything came back fine, pulled the hard drive, ran some more diagnostics on the hard drive. The hard drive was fine. And I've started to see a lot of this lately, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think I know why with Windows 10, but this is an older Windows 7 install. And I think there's a lot of times where system restore is never turned on. And so you can't actually restore this particular machine back to any workable date because there are no saves. So he's in a position now where, I've got to have this conversation with him on Monday. This particular deal he got with this golf simulator came with a bunch of different golf courses. There were add-ons. Well, now the service that has these the software actually does it as a service. So it's like a monthly or yearly fee that you got to pay into to get these things. And he's already kind of got them. But if we have to wipe the system, which is basically the only thing that I can look at doing now, because Windows is just, it won't start up. I can't fix it in any form or fashion, offline or online. And so it's one of those situations where I would tell people, make sure if you're supporting something, obviously we have backups and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times in a business environment, this doesn't matter as much. But even from that standpoint, it's easy to do a system restore on something that got borked by a driver or just a little piece of software, something somebody downloaded on that computer, and can save you a lot of time instead of, even, in my opinion, even today, as fast as things are, re-imaging a machine. So there's that. Take it for what it's worth, and hopefully that will, at least you'll look at that when you're kind of diagnosing computers and seeing what's going wrong with them and making sure that certain things are turned on. Again, I've never seen it. Normally in Windows 7, it's turned on automatically. I think there was a time, and Paco, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a time where Windows 10 actually had that shut off by default. And I can't remember if they ever changed it. Yeah, I don't remember. There's so much information out there, unfortunately. So anyways. All right, let's go ahead and go into our main topic for today. And that is the one thing that most of us probably are not good at, and that is sales. So what we're going to talk about today is in a lot of different forms and fashion of what we can do, but how to be better at sales. When people think of sales, they think of, I got to be pushy. I got to get my point across. I got to smash you over the head with my box of software so you will buy from me. And that is not the case. And I think a lot of people forget the interaction, the human behavior of, you are providing a service that is going to help your client out. And in return, they're going to give you these certificates of appreciation called money. And in that exchange, it's a good thing from both sides. So it's a win-win. And that's what we really look for when it comes to sales and thinking about sales. You're not selling something, you're providing a service, you're providing a solution to that person's problem, because a lot of times your clients won't even know that they have a problem. But to start this conversation off, I'm going to shoot it over to John Fazio, because he at our last TechCon Unplugged event, he did a awesome sales talk talking about just all kinds of things and kind of hitting on some of these keys. So, John, I'm sorry I stole some of your stuff. I'm gonna give you the accolades now. The next time I use it, though, you're getting nothing.
That's okay. I mean, I stole it. Everybody steals stuff and flips it over, so it's all good. It's interesting, and that even as you had described it. So I come from a background as far as sales training from a certain company that I worked for a bunch of years, and there's philosophies that they have, which is sort of enrooted in me at this point. And I had made the kind of analogy at TechCon where, as a computer guy, where you're looking at a computer and you're trying to figure out what exactly is wrong with it. And, you had even gone through the kind of thing in your mind where you're getting a computer from your neighbor, you're going to go through the steps to try to figure out, let me figure out this problem first, and then I can figure out what the solution is after that. And it's really the same thing with sales, because you have to kind of think about everybody as a different computer. Everybody has different things that affect them. Everybody has different problems. Everybody has different methods of saying yes to something like a sales, pitch. And like you had even said, should I be pushy? Well, in certain situations, you may need to be pushy, depending on who you're working with and who you're talking to. Like, that may mean something that you need to do. If you're not necessarily pushy, even, having the confidence behind something that you may not have had before, that may affect the person that you're dealing with. So the only thing I would say, to not get too far into it, is just that, like, every person, you have to think about it as a new computer or a new tech thing that you have to figure out. Once you figure that out, then you could start the selling process, or, how you're pitching them, or what, kind of points that they're going to be paying attention to. But you have to start with that diagnosis first. And the thing about sales is that it's one of those things that you have to continuously keep on working on, so you can get to the point where, when you have a conversation with somebody very quickly, you can figure those kind of things out. It's just like, again, you start with a computer, you get to figure out what this is. And then the next time you come with that problem, you could be like, all right, well, I've already done this before. I can, I now have a solution for it. It's going to be the same kind of thing with sales. You just have to continuously try different things with, different people and different ways of doing stuff. And then you're going to start kind of connecting with people, and you're going to start understanding people, and you're going to start, same kind of thing, looking at people the same way that you would look at tech, which is, let me figure this out. Let me take a step back. Let me not just throw everything at it like you guys would, because you end up losing money and all that kind of stuff. Let me take my time to learn this person. And then let me take my time to figure out where the pain is. And then as as you're professional and confident and knowing what you're doing, then you provide them with that resolution to what their issues are. But everything's so individual that there's really not one method of doing anything. You really have to be able to be that kind of chameleon where whatever, if it's a Windows, if it's an iOS, if it's whatever, you have to be able to zig and zag to what you have to deal with right there.
That's very good. Yeah, you got to be you. And I think that's where a lot of times people look at maybe changing their own personality to fit a certain stereotype. And that's not what people are looking for. People are doing business with you because they like you generally. And if they don't, you probably should not be doing business with them anyways. And I know a lot of people, yeah, but that's my revenue. Okay. And if you got revenue from sticking a fork in your eye, would you continue to stick a fork in your eye? No, I don't think you would.
I'll make a quick point before we go to Jennifer, because I'm sure she has, a point onto this. But when you think about something like personality styles, which we talk about in sales and again, psychology of people and human beings and things like that. Now, if you think about just for the fact that there are personality styles and there's different way that people think about things, you can easily put them into just 4 different categories. So if you just think about it that way, where you put yourself into one of the 4 different categories. Now, at that point in time, there's 3 other categories that you're not a part of. So you're either going to have to adjust yourself to connect with those people or not. Like, as you said, you don't have to work with the people that you don't, connect with. But the other side about that is that there's 75% of the population out there that isn't like you. So either you are able to adjust yourself and be in the situation with that person, or unfortunately, you're going to stick with the 25% that is like you, that connects with you, that understands you. In sales, you have to be able to get out of that 25% and be able to connect with people that aren't like you. So it's very much that ability to adjust who your core person is to be in that sales mind. It's just a different, I'll put it this way. There's professional salespeople for a reason. And one person that is an MSP that is very smart when it comes to tech may not be the right person to be the salesperson. I made that point at TechCon. So sometimes you have to bring in the professionals, or at least hire somebody that's going to teach you how to do this. But sales is an animal that you have to understand. I'll stop talking now. I'm sorry.
Very good. All right, Jennifer. And obviously you're coming from, cybersecurity and all that kind of stuff as far as sales. And that's a big thing nowadays. But what is your take on sales and kind of what John was talking about as far as, getting those right people and adjusting yourself along the way?
I think that there are some people who are natural born salespeople, but there are also IT companies that don't have the resources to find an outside salesperson and hire someone. So they owe it to themselves and they owe it to their prospects and their business to become the best salesperson they can be. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be the best in the world, but they need to be the best that they are capable of being. And so I like to put it in the world of troubleshooting, because when you are working a computer, most of the guys and gals that are listening, they automatically go through this flow chart almost. Okay, I did the first thing that was logical. That didn't work. Well, now I'm going to either go here or here. Which one makes the most sense? I'm going to go here. And they it's almost hard to document it. Most of the people that are listening probably just do that automatically because they've been doing it for so many years. There's no emotion involved. It's not, well, there may sometimes be emotion involved when the computer just won't work and it keeps blue screening. But for the most part, maybe you get frustrated, but you don't take it personally. It's not a personal affront when you can't reload the OS or you can't, find the issue with the breach or whatever. And so I encourage my students to look at it the same way. You are troubleshooting. You are figuring out what worked. You're taking a step back and saying, why didn't this work? Or why did this work? Documenting, which is not something most of us love. It's certainly not something that a technician loves from a technical side. And then we ask them to document a script or a sales process, and they already hated documentation anyway. And now we're asking them to document a process that they hate. We're asking them to document sales, which for most people it is not something that's fun, at least most techs. And so it is challenging. But what I say is to look at it like a game. And most of us, if we're playing a game, we are all in and we are focused on winning and we're willing to take chances and we just have fun and we relax and we roll with it. And that's really where you want to get as a salesperson, is professional enough that you can get off of a phone call. And it's happened to me many times. I remember one time vividly, I did what I was supposed to do, which is, hey, I'm going to go through and show you the solution. And when we get to the end, I'm going to ask you to make a decision, and it's either going to make sense or it's not. And I got this very abrupt, I know what you're doing. And I said, well, what am I doing? You're trying to close me. And I knew enough to immediately back off and say, listen, I'm genuinely trying to help. And if I can't help you, I'm not even going to make you an offer. And if I can, then wouldn't you want to buy it? And so we were able to kind of do a little bit of a mid-course correction. He did not buy. I got off the phone and went, all right, that did not go well. Could I have diagnosed it ahead of time? I don't think I could have, because things were going swimmingly until then, kind of much like troubleshooting sometimes. You're like, this is going to work. I just know it. And then it doesn't, right? Because people are people, and people, for whatever reason, you can push their buttons and you didn't mean to, and you didn't even know it was coming. But to have the ability to get off of that call, to shrug it off, not take it personally, say, okay, what did I say? Could I have caused it? How could I have identified that? How could I have worded things better, differently? And then roll that into who you are and into your script and your presentation going forward. That's where it really starts to get fun.
Very cool. Paco, when somebody says sales, do you like run the other way, or is it something that you embrace? And I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask you for the audience.
I very much embrace the sales situation. I think any entrepreneur, and really everybody, is a salesperson at heart. And I think you've kind of mentioned this in previous shows about, you got to close something. I think a mentor of mine kind of had the conversation of how sales really starts and how salespeople kind of got that bad rep, right? And what he helped me understand is that that's not really, the ones that identify to that stereotype are not really good salespeople anyway. What it really is, and kind of Cristobal put in the comments too, it all starts with a conversation, right? And specifically, you can look down to anyone making a suggestion for their favorite restaurant. That is them trying to convince them to go to this restaurant at their suggestion because they felt that it was, the food was great, the atmosphere was amazing, etc. And if that person goes, well, that person just sold them the experience of that restaurant and how did that conversation took place, right? But like John and Jennifer both said, a lot of us either embrace it and find out that we're really good at it, or we need to go ahead and get formal training for it. I have always been the type to say, never was a salesperson, will never be a salesperson, not going to get into sales. I'm hiring it out. It's not my big thing. And in reality, really sales, all it is really business development. I mean, all it really is expanding relationships, understanding connections, and really making sure that not so much take advantage of it, but understanding that it can be beneficial both ways, right? And kind of that's, has always been our motto here with like the shows and our partners and our vendors and those attending like even our events. We want to make sure everyone is equal all around, but there's an opportunity there that everyone can benefit. And that's really what the true essence of sales is, really being able to have that exchange that's mutually beneficial to both parties.
And I think one of the things I've said in the past, that when it comes to sales, and a lot of people have said, I'm not a salesperson. And here's what I say. Number one, if you have a spouse, look at your spouse, because you definitely sold some goods to them. And even if you're, boyfriend, girlfriend, same thing. You're going out with somebody, you're selling something, you're letting somebody know something about you. And that's really, we don't really look at it as I'm selling myself, but let's face it. I mean, you take a shower, you put some deodorant on, you do the normal things, maybe brush your teeth, all that kind of good stuff. You put a good foot forward, and then you have that conversation that is going to entice somebody to want to hang out with you. It's the same type of thing. This is like life 101, but I think sometimes we get things in our head and we get so stuck in this. I think when we talk about scummy salespeople, everybody always looks at the used car salesman. You have a used car salesman he's out there, he's ready to sell you, whatever, a piece of junk for, $1 million. It's not quite that bad, but everybody knows that stereotype. And as Paco said, it's not about that. It's about making that conversation, getting that connection, and really making it come full circle.
I think the reality is that every industry and basically every job has a sales portion of it. I mean, every industry, there's a sales there. There has to be some sort of sales process there. And yes, you're absolutely right. There's very bad salespeople out there, because people think that sales is just spitting out a bunch of information or just coaxing somebody into doing something, or, you know, being like trickery and being that, you know, politician that says something but not really says something. And like, unfortunately, I always told people that your worst enemy is the last salesperson that they came in contact with, like, no matter where they came from, because that's in their mind who you are. So you're already down. I mean, as a salesperson, like, you should think about yourself as just that. Like, you're already down. So what can you be doing to try to build that, you know, basis up where you can just talk equally to each other, so they don't think of you right off the bat as a salesperson? And that's where that learning how to talk to somebody and connect with somebody very quickly and all that kind of stuff comes into play, because you only have a little bit of time there to either be a typical salesperson like everybody else or be different. And that's the huge portion of it, because, yeah, there's really bad salespeople out there.
And I think if the number one enemy in the sales process is the previous salesperson that prospect just interacted with, I think the number two enemy can often be the voices in our head. The one that says, I hate sales. I don't want to be a pushy salesperson.
Yep.
I don't want to be sleazy. And often those are sleazy salespeople, or that used car salesperson is in it for themselves. They are not other focused. Their motivation is very much inside of their body, inside of their head. Whereas if you are the kind of typical IT company who genuinely wants to serve their community, genuinely wants to help small businesses and medium-sized businesses in your community and beyond, perhaps inside of a niche, maybe not, then you by definition are not going to be a sleazy salesperson, because you are not focused on what you're going to get out of it. You are focused on helping someone. And so that mindset, that healthy mindset that sales is valuable and it's important and it's not sleazy, is so important to cultivate. And then once you get it, to protect it, because it's so easy to lose it just with a bad string of prospecting calls, or a bad string of months that leads don't come in, or you get leads but you can't close them. And so it's really, really important that we all protect the mindset where sales is valuable and that we can sell, and that's okay to say.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times where people don't really look at their business as, if I'm going to grow it, I have to sell something. That's just part of the business. That's part of the ongoing product or service that you're peddling. It doesn't just come by osmosis. So you've got to put something in there and put some effort. And I like what everybody's saying here, because there's many, many different ways to do this. And I think a lot of times, I think people can, to a certain extent, do a fair amount of sales. And I think if you've got something that you got to do that's high volume, and you really need somebody that's what their focus is. Let's be honest. We can't focus on 15, 20 different things. I know a lot of us would love to say that we are multitaskers. I'm here to tell you there is no such thing. It does not exist. Your brain moves from one thing to another, to another, to another. That's how your brain was designed to work. That's how it works. Sorry, people. Hate to burst your bubble, but sometimes you got to be able to focus on certain areas of your business. And that's maybe when it's important to bring somebody in that can sell something. But from a standpoint, especially as a technician, or maybe a one-person show, if you're going out there and you're talking to your customer, they're going to be asking you questions on what they need. They're going to tell you what their problems are a lot of times. Sometimes you might have to ask, but from what I've seen, a lot of people really tell you what problems they're having. And so you can go and look at that and go, okay, here's how I can solve your problem. Now, whether they take that or not, again, as Jennifer had said, it's nothing against you. Maybe the timing's not right. Maybe that's something you can bring up in 6 months. Again, I think a lot of times people will look at things and they will go, okay, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that again, or I'm not going to touch base with that person again. And I think a lot of times you need to think differently, because obviously, I don't know about you guys, but a lot of my customers are repeat customers, even on the residential side. And they just keep coming back, and they'll ask me questions all the time. And I'll go, hey, I've got a solution for that. Here's what you need. Well, okay, that's not going to work this time. Okay. But they'll come back to me again, or I go back to them again and let them know we've got this available. Maybe that would help them at that time. Maybe times are different. So you've got to look at all these different opportunities that you have when it comes to sales.
Well, I think specifically exactly what you said. People hate to be sold, but they love to buy. And I think that's the biggest piece that a lot of people don't really look at it in that realm, right? And a lot of people are not comfortable to push sales. And what they don't understand is that they don't have to push sales. All you really need to do is nudge. Have that mentality that you just need to nudge. And exactly like you said, when you hear the pain points of a certain client or prospect, or whether it's a cross sell, upsell, a new product that's coming in that may solve your own problems, you understand that there are nudges happening throughout the day. And that's really what happens and what drives either a decision being made specifically on either for you to buy something. And that's what the purpose of sales is that since we all love to buy something and we all love to have either more time, bigger brand awareness, more market share, or lowering costs, we would love to be able to buy something that will take care of one of those three. So that's one of those where I would say, understand that nudging is not necessarily pushing someone towards sales, and it's very top of mind if you do it.
I think one of the big things that we talk about, and you have to have a sort of that purpose there, right? Like, what's the reason behind what you're doing? And for me, I've been making calls since, I haven't stopped making calls. I mean, that's basically what we do. We make calls to MSPs. So in the first part of the craziness of things that were going on, I mean, I was still making calls. And I was the first few calls that I made, I remember the Monday that I came in and started making calls. I mean, I was getting chewed out, and it was more of like, what are you doing? Why are you calling me right now? Like, how much stuff is going on. And like, I had to take a step back and first off realize that, the product that I sell, there is a reason behind it right now. It's helpful. It's better a security product than what they're currently using. Like, there's a need there. And for me, like, I have to trust that. And there's a reason why I'm calling. But what I had to do was I had to adjust the way that I was calling, my tone right off the bat. Because if they thought of me as a salesperson and I'm calling at this point in time, then feel free to tear me up. But then it became an adjustment where, listen, I understand that you're busy right now. I understand that you have these things going on, but I want to talk about, just for the fact that this is a remote product that can help you, let me know. I'll send you some information. And it's sort of like when you were able to turn that kind of point where I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm here as an advocate, here to help you. And the product that I can be that. It helps you pick up the phone, because when there's a need there, and that's the thing, every salesperson has to wake up with a need and a want and like a purpose. And when there's a purpose there, that's the reason to pick up that phone, especially for MSPs now. Trust me, I have talked to MSPs that are busy and the phone is ringing off the hook. And they have, they understand that essential is part of technology now, and cybersecurity and technology and remote access and all that kind of stuff. Like, there is a need right now. And if you're not picking up that phone, calling up businesses, somebody else is. I mean, that's basically the honesty about it. There's MSPs that are out there that are doing what they need to do right now to, even as Paco said, set the framework to what's eventually they're going to need you, especially if they're downsizing their tech department, like Jennifer was saying. It's a matter of thinking ahead and understanding that things are going to be adjusted. But as long as you wake up with a purpose, pick up that phone. There's the reason for it.
Yeah, I would add, it's interesting when you see a transition from MSPs that are a little more laid back in their approach to sales. And then when they start to realize, and it's usually when a client gets hit with some kind of a cyber incident, they realize that they have a duty and an obligation to protect their clients and then their prospects as well. And they get this fire in their belly because they know that it's their job, and they know that they need to penetrate as many businesses as they possibly can. And they become this IT and this cybersecurity evangelist of sorts, where they have this passion to get in front of as many people as they can with the message. And they know that everyone won't listen today, but they know some people will. And they know that some of the people who don't listen today may listen in a month or 3 months or 6 months. And so it feeds me emotionally to watch that shift happen, where companies and business owners and salespeople, all of a sudden the light goes on and they say, yeah, this isn't just a job. Like, I I have to do this. This is my duty. This is why I'm here right now at this point in time in history. I got to get on the stick. And it's a lot of fun to watch. It really is.
All right, let's go ahead and we're going to take a quick break and get back into this very interesting conversation. I'm loving all the different directions we're going and the things we're talking about. And hopefully this is helpful to the audience, something they can glean from and get some information that they can become better at, because I'm learning all kinds of things in a lot of times on how to change my mind and stuff like that. If you guys or gals that are out there in the IT space know somebody that maybe has been laid off, I have a program I want to point you to that might make it a little bit better, give them something to do. And, there's some nice things out there that people are doing right now to help. And it's called Instant Housecall Kickstarter. It's a free program designed to help a new entrepreneur who is impacted by layoff due to the coronavirus. If you are starting a computer repair, MSP, IT service, or IT consulting business, it's funny how everybody got, oh, I did that. Instant Housecall Kickstarter is for you. Participants will receive 6 months free Instant Housecall remote support software, the Entrepreneur Edition. That's the big daddy. You can do basically whatever you want with that. It's a really cool product. It's the one I actually use. And also 6 months of free mentoring from an industry advisor, 1 hour each month for 6 months. Go to instanthousecall.com/Kickstarter. And if you know anybody out there that was laid off due to this coronavirus, or maybe is looking for a change in career, because this happens all the time, even during the good times, maybe this might be a program for them. And let's face it, with remote support, that's pretty much what I'm doing nowadays, is sitting behind a computer and talking to people on a phone and, jiggling the keyboard and moving the mouse around and all that kind of stuff. You definitely want to, it's a great program to learn, and it helps you get started right away. There's a lot of cool tools built into Instant Housecall that makes my life a ton easier. And one of those is it has basically a cleanup program built into it. It does a phenomenal job where basically I log into somebody's computer, I click a couple buttons, I go make another cup of coffee, because I have several now during the day, and I will, sit back and wait for that thing to get done. And the nice thing is you can be working on multiple computers at once. Keep yourself going throughout the day. It's a great time to be in this business. We used to say, when you get started in a business like this, all you really need is your brain and maybe a screwdriver or two and some, maybe a USB key, but back in the day it was floppy disks and all that kind of stuff. I know, kids. I know you don't know what I'm talking about. It's the save button up at the top of your documents. There you go. That is a floppy disk for those that did not know. Look it up. Very interesting. All right. Anyways, that comes from our good friend Corey Fruitman, and I appreciate him putting that stuff out there to help during this downtime. I think this has been a great time in history where a lot of people are really stepping up and doing things to help each other. And now I've always felt like people that surround this show, this community, we've always been in that mode, and the people that we associate with always are willing to help each other. But sometimes you'll find people outside of this community who maybe not as much. They get a little scared, or they get a little territorial, and they don't want their business to go down at all. And it's like, it's not really what it's really about. I've explained the numbers before. You can live in an area, and I guarantee you there is not enough IT support to support everybody in that area. There's plenty of business out there. And we've had several people who've come on the show over the years that have been in small towns and are killing it. Now, maybe they're the only IT business, but they're out there, they're taking care of everybody and doing quite well. So,
yeah, I mean, especially how the relationships that we form with our community. I think I've had probably quite a few lifelong friends now, just from coming into this whole community and started listening to Jeff 5.5 years ago. And I was of that mindset. I was of the, there's competition everywhere. I got to get everything I can in Chicago, and I'm losing my mind. Like not planning to go all the way down to the South Side, because that's way too far for me. You know, my area was more of the West Loop and the Chicago downtown area where I was needed back 5.5 years ago, where I was more closer by the river, you know, things of that nature. So yeah, like you said, I think it's a lot of great opportunities for just any community, you know, having the ability to talk one-on-one and really being able to have something like what Corey is doing is priceless.
And it goes a long way to helping people out during this time, for sure.
So
Okay.
actually, Jeff, I'm going to steal it from you because I want to actually steer the conversation right now for Jennifer and John.
You go.
Is if you had to put one book that you would say either inspired you, and I know there's a lot because I had to actually figure out what was going to be my book that I would suggest for our audience, for our community, to just read or listen to Audible just to be inspired to get into sales. And I'll go ahead and start off with, I actually have 2 books that I'll throw out. The first one is actually The Little Red Book of Selling by, oh man, I can't think of the author's name. But he's a very famous sales guy.
So Jeffrey Gitomer?
Yes, thank you. Jeffrey Gitomer, he very great. And this was a book that was suggested to me as I started trying to, you know, walk the world of sales and get better at understanding. And my good friend, Patrick McMullen at my old job, who was the SVP of sales over there, and he introduced his book to me, helped me understand how to understand sales. This was a great book. And then my mentor's book, Response Block Selling, Victor Antonio, that was one of those where how to, and similar to kind of how what John was mentioning earlier, is how do you stop the rejections before they happen? Understanding the value right before and disarming them from the, I don't know, or this is not what's going to happen, or just understanding once you've qualified your prospect, how do you make sure that you can make sure you get ahead of the conversation so that you can understand, is this a sale? Is this someone that you want to do business with? This is who I want to go forward with in closing that particular deal. So I'll kick it off to either one who is interested on just kind of highlighting a book that you felt that has helped you or that it helped with the audience.
I'll just jump in. I mean, you know, so the old company I used to work for is Sandler Training, and they have this, one of the trainers is John Rosso, and he has this book, Prospecting the Sandler Way. And I 100% recommend somebody, you know, that's looking or trying to understand prospecting, making calls and things like that, to check out that book. One of the books that when I first started in sales was The Law of Success, which, you know, by Napoleon Hill, which you guys may know. And it sort of goes back to the fact that sales is a psychological thing. Like, it's very much, you have to understand yourself. And that was just a sort of book that takes you through a journey in just that, like really kind of understanding who you are as a person. And I think that that's a very much basis of sales, is to start off with the psychology of it, like understanding who you are and understanding what drives you. And then that will help you kind of understand other things. But the whole Sandler library are great. And the trainers are the ones that write the books. So it's all great stuff.
Okay, so I had to look at my bookshelf. Man, I immediately probably 5 or 6 different titles popped in my mind, and I'm going to recommend 2. So I'm kind of stretching the rules on this because you said top book, but I'm going to say books. Now, the challenge is neither one of these are super basic books. They're both they're a stretch. They're a little bit outside the normal, you know, Tom Hopkins and Jeffrey Blount and all those they're great books, but Sales EQ is very much around the psychology of selling, psychology of the salesperson, psychology of the prospect, just fascinating from a psych standpoint. The other one, I don't know if they would technically put it in the category of a sales book. It is more of a mindset book, but that's such a huge component of being a successful salesperson. And that book is Psycho-Cybernetics. So psychology paired with cybernetics, or the way that connections are made, or the way your brain works or something. I can't think of what cybernetics is, but it's really about how powerful our brains are. And I don't mean in a woo-woo kind of a way. I mean just simply something as simple as our words have more power than we would probably realize. So if I'm waking up every morning and I'm saying, I hate sales. Or if we go up the funnel a little bit, I hate prospecting. Well, that makes it much more difficult to do because our words just created the reality where I hate prospecting. And now I'm not, why in the world am I going to go do something that I hate? Or prospecting doesn't work. Again, words are very powerful. Or everyone in my city is cheap. Or all of my clients are a pain in the rear, or whatever. Those words are extremely powerful. And psycho-cybernetics, you probably won't be able to read much more than a chapter at a time. They're pretty short chapters. So when you get it and you look at it, you'll kind of think Jennifer was crazy for saying, oh, I can probably, only read one chapter at a time. Because I think they're 4 pages. I mean, like usually 2 facing pages plus 1 more. But they are deep, and you'll end up underlining, and I would recommend like make a single sentence takeaway from each chapter. And that is it's more than just a game changer. It's a life changer.
Very good. I've notated those, and we'll have those in the show notes.
So I'm going to jump in, and I'm thinking back on the physical books that I've had, and I was just looking through my digital library because I replaced a lot of those physical books from years and years ago. But one of the books that impacted me, and again, a lot of these you have to look at. Sometimes people look at the titles and they'll get offended, I guess is the best word. And one of the ones that I think about is Think and Grow Rich. And again, Think and Grow Rich, an excellent, excellent book. And it's about how you think and how you do things. And as Jennifer was saying, a lot of people will look at a lot of this stuff and, oh, I don't want to say, I don't want to say good things. I don't know why. What's wrong with you? It's not like you wake up in the morning and you walk into the bathroom and you go, good morning, ugly. That would be stupid, right? So if you're not going to do that to yourself, why would you do that about other areas of your life? And I have positive affirmations that I say every morning. And those positive affirmations are just to get me thinking along the lines of where I need to be in my mind, what positive things that maybe I forgot from all the garbage that happened to me the day before, or the weeks before, or the month before. There is a lot of power in that. Our brains are an amazing piece of machinery that was created, and just it can do a lot of different things, and it does it very, very well if you'll let it. But sometimes you gotta prime the pump a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in those positive affirmations every morning, because it lets you decide who you are going to show up as that day, as opposed to your feelings dictating how you're going to show up that day. And so instead of your feelings dictating your actions, you are choosing through your words how you're going to show up and how you're going to act that day.
Yes. The other book, and I'm going to cheat too, Paco, is this is an interesting book, and a lot of people, you might think might be religious or something like that. It's not really. It's The Richest Man in Babylon, and it was a book that I think my wife introduced it to me, and she was reading it with our boys during school, and I read it, and it's actually a fairly short book, but it's packed with so much information, again, on how you think, on how you perceive things, and how life can be if you just make decisions along the way. And that's basically the whole premise of the story. So very, very good book. We talk about this a lot of times. I think the number one skill that people probably still need to continue to do, and I even do it continually, is go back and read books that you've already read. Because I guarantee you, if you read a book a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth time, you will get some other things out of it. You're like going, I don't remember that being in the book. And it absolutely was. You just weren't ready to hear it because you were trying to learn all the other foundational stuff that it was leading you to. So reading is very, very important. And again, I'm with you all. I love Audible most of the time, depending on speakers, but most of the time they're perfectly fine. I'd rather do that than a lot of times, and I've gotten better at it. If I open up a book 5 minutes later, I'm like, I'm in a snooze mode. And that's usually, let me side tangent. There's a reason for that. If you are sitting down and you're reading a book and you're snoozing, that means you are way too busy. I'm just going to put that out there, and you need to reassess some things in your life. and understand that, okay, not everything I do is going to be worthwhile. So I need to really pick out the things that are going to be most important to me today. And I would say that that's probably has a lot to do with sales. You need to pick your battles in what you're going to do. You need to have that focus instead of just being this buckshot that just shoots all over the place and, or throws spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks. That kind of approach is not going to work.
One of the kind of realizations that blew my mind, and this was really only a few years ago when, again, sort of learning psychology and that sales process, is the fact that we have sort of these tapes in our mind that started very young. So you figure, from 0 to 5, 6 years old, your experiences where you have complete, you don't have any control because you're a kid, or you're going through these things where there's the people around you are essentially molding you. And then you're basically thrown out to the world, and you're going to go through life running those same tapes that were with you in those very early ages, unless you stop and you change that. And a lot of times when you start looking at, how people work, you sort of see where they're stuck on the same tapes that they had when they were younger. And those are fears of something like picking up the phone and calling somebody, or those are fears of, this person not liking me, and I don't want to try to sell them something because they may not like me. Like, all those things, amazingly, are from core things, experiences that happened when you were younger that you had no control over. So what do you do now as an adult? The beauty is that we have this now consciousness where we can say, well, wait a second, why do I think that way? What's the reason behind it? And you can actually track those things back to those experiences that you have there. And as adults, now you can say, do I want to keep this or do I want to let this go? And again, this really only happened, a few years ago. I wish that they would even teach this stuff in school, which is you're not restrictive to what you feel like you are, because that may have been somebody else's, direction, or somebody else's fears or whatever that was put upon you. And now you have the ability to break through that. And again, that was just one of those huge things where the voices inside my head I started hearing the voices of the people that put it in there. And that's like the consciousness where you could be like, wait a second, that doesn't need to be in there. I need to let that go and let me, move that around. But understand that you have no control over how you think if you don't consciously are aware of where those thoughts came from.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite quotes. Someone's opinion of you is not does not have to become your reality.
Yeah, I would also add on to that you don't have to believe your thoughts. And that ultimately you can retrain yourself so you don't even have to think those thoughts anymore. And so to be able to distance yourself from what had been your old programming, right? Because so many of the people listening to this, they understand programming, they understand operating systems. Well, that operating system may be corrupt today, because it's what you were trained to do. It's what you were trained to think. And too many of us don't relive a different day tomorrow. We relive today tomorrow. And we just relive the same day over and over and over again with the same exact patterns. And it is simply a program. But that program can be reprogrammed with our thoughts, with journaling, with even if we were, John was talking about fears. Sometimes we have a fear of picking up the phone. Well, it can be very powerful to say, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Like, legitimately, probably the worst that can happen if I call a prospect, or I call a partner or a client, I want them to buy something else, whatever. Probably the worst that can happen is client could fire me, or prospect's going to scream at me, maybe swear and hang up. And none of that is going to impact my life, my family, the roof over my head, my ability to buy groceries. I mean, so if you chart out, like, okay, what is the worst that can happen really? You start to realize that a lot of your fears are completely irrational. And they come from your past, and they come from when you were a kid. They were designed to keep you safe and keep you from getting laughed at in class, or wherever the different fears come from. But you can get past that. And sometimes just saying, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And is that really that bad? And then you say, well, what's the best that can happen? And you're like, yeah, let's go ahead and make that phone call. Maybe they'll laugh at me, maybe they'll buy from me, but more than likely, I'm just going to get voicemail. I can leave a voicemail message. And so simply thinking that through and talking that through and journaling it, if you're into journaling, can be a very powerful way to get over these very irrational fears.
Wow. This went a whole different direction than I thought it was going to go. And I'm really liking the direction it's going, because and we've talked about it on the show before, that I believe that 90% mindset and really 10% of what actions and things that you do. And you do those actions by the mindset that you have. And I think it's one of those things that I was going to say, there comes a certain point, and for all you young ones out there, there comes a certain age where you get to a point where you don't care as much what people think anymore. It's usually around age 40-ish, in my opinion. That's kind of the point. I'm 50 now, and I just got to the point where I really didn't care what people thought, and I was gonna be me, and I was gonna help people the best that I could. The ones who want to be helped, they'd let me help them. The ones that didn't want to be helped, they'd move along, and that was perfectly fine. Not a problem in the world. And I think part of life is constantly becoming better, constantly improving yourself, because what would be the point? You're never going to get to the point of perfection, but there's always the ability to make yourself better and to get better in your life and make whatever life you want. And that's the whole thing. Without pursuit, what's the point? You know, back in, I know our good friend John Nabinski's talked about this, you know, back in the day, and this was a long time ago. I don't even know if he remembers this, but, you know, we're out there, and our job is we go out there, we hunt it, we kill it, we bring it home, we cook it up. Well, that was part of the process of your day. That was part of the process of you living your life and you making your life better so you could eat, so you could survive for the next day, and so on and so forth. And so that mindset is still there regardless, unless you just want to sit back. And here's the problem. A lot of people that feel that they're standing still in life are not really standing still. You're actually moving backwards without you even knowing it. And that's the problem. And so you need to feed yourself positive and good things to help you in your life and to help the other people that are around you. Your family will appreciate it. Your prospects will appreciate it. Your client base will appreciate it, because, you know, you are the people that they have to a lot of times come in contact with.
Jeff, I wanted to just, the word that you said as far as process is concerned, and we're talking about this a lot, where, you know, the sales process, at the end of the day, it's a numbers thing. And the people that pay attention to just the process itself, which is, you know, not thinking about the fact that you're going to be making a sales call and you're going to possibly, you know, get, somebody yelling at you or whatever. It literally comes down to, I need to make 5 calls today, and I'm going to make the 5 calls today. And then, especially now, we're in a situation where you may be at home and there may be, you know, the kids yelling around, or you may just be off of your schedule that you typically have. You really have to, we used to call it a cookbook. You know, it's just the things that you have to get through during the day. And if it's a matter of saying, hey, I never did cold calls, but let me just put on 1 cold call a day. So at some point in time in your day, you make that 1 cold call to just get through it. And it really becomes a practice, in a sense that, you know, in my world, I think about it as music, where if you're learning something, it's practice over and over again. And it's the same kind of thing with sales. I mean, we're talking a lot about, you know, a lot of psychology, and this may even scare people in saying, you know, I'm not that person that can do it. But the reality is, it just comes with consistency and picking up the phone and the discipline of saying, I'm going to make 5 calls today. And, you know, it doesn't matter about whether the call was good or the call or bad or whatever. At the end of the fact that you made those 5 calls, now you succeeded in something. And it really has to come down in that mindset of, it's all about the process. The outcome's going to come. It's always going to come if the process is there. But just don't even pay attention to the outcome. Just get yourself, you know, pick up that phone 1 time, and you're going to learn how to do a voicemail. You're going to learn how to, you know, present yourself. But it's going to start with literally just having the process there and giving yourself that, you know, kind of that contest where I'm actually going to make 5 calls today, or I'm actually going to make 20 calls or 50 calls, or, you know, I'm in sales. Like, you're making 50, 60 calls because you know that the majority of those calls are either going to be voicemail or not going to go good or whatever. But once you get to connection and you make that, relationship with somebody and you're able to actually help them, it's the same kind of thing of any, a sports person where you're practicing to eventually hit that, that the big game, winning, or the musician that's practicing to eventually be on stage and hit that thing. It's the same kind of thing. It's just practicing over and over again. And eventually you get comfortable and you're able to do it. We all know that guy that was able to, walk around the bar and talk to every girl and eventually is going to walk out with one of them. It's the same kind of thing. You just have to make those calls and get yourself confident enough that, you get enough rejection, you're going to get that, thick skin a little bit.
And you can't focus on what you can't control. So you can't focus on the rejection. You can't focus really even on the end result you want, which is the prospect to agree to a sales call or a deeper conversation. But what you can control are those 5 dials a day or the 10 dials a day. And you can focus on saying, I'm going to do this consistently for the next 4 weeks. And if you dial the phone 5 times a day, that's 25 a week. That's 100 a month. That's 100 dials this month that you didn't make last month and that most of your competitors are not making. And eventually 5 could become 10 and eventually it just becomes part of who you are and what you do. But what you're controlling is your actions. You can't control the reaction, but you can control the action. So just focus on doing that.
All this is great points, and I'm going to give a real life story, and that's this particular podcast and the previous one that I've done. I've done over 450 some odd episodes in the last 5.5 years. I had several different shows that I have done. It's different times, and a lot of people don't believe me, but I'm telling you, the first 150 shows, and we weren't doing most of them live. The first 150 shows I was doing audio only, just recording it, editing it, getting it out. My heart, with even friends of mine that I was meeting up with to talk about tech or whatever, my heart would beat 100 miles an hour. I kid you not, for about the first 2-3 minutes until I started. I got it going. And now most people would have never seen that. And they didn't know what was going on the inside of me. But I'm telling you, for the first 150 episodes. Yeah. That's a lot. And a lot of people go, well, it's like putting one step in or one foot in front of the other. You're just moving forward and you just continue to do it. And it becomes more comfortable. I can sit down at this thing now. I'm so nonchalant about things. I set things up. I'm, last minute setting this up. Yeah, no big deal. I used to be panicked and everything. Now I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Push record. No big deal. Everybody, no matter what you train yourself to do, you will get to that point in your life where it will become as natural as driving a car for those that know how to drive well. Anyways. All right. So what I like to do is we're long on time. I love this conversation and maybe we'll have to come back and do a different, cant on it or whatever. But if everybody could gather their last thoughts that they would like to share, we're going to go ahead and, just kind of get the last thoughts out there and see anything we haven't covered that you really want to talk about today. And John, because I always know that you're prepared and you're ready to go already because you've got like a million things in your head. Jennifer, I know you do too, but John, I've seen him operate and it's like going, where'd that come out of? No. So John, you go.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know. So sort of final thoughts. I think, again, we're in an opportunity right now where there's innovation that's happening and there's people that are thinking differently. And if so happens that we have this, this thing that's causing that, in reality, I think that that's a good thing and that we should be looking at this as clearly there's things that, may have been broken in the past that we could actually fix, moving forward. So I think it's always, as we're talking about even tonight with the sales aspect of it, it's all about, how you think about things. And as we said, like the reaction to it. And all of us can take different reactions to different things. And, when you turn on the news, like you can have a different reaction to that. A positive reaction is being thankful about the fact that you're not those people that are on TV. It all comes back to how you think about, how you look at things and how you're consciously aware of your thoughts and why they occur. And I really think that if you take these downtime to really think about what you want to achieve or what you've always wanted to achieve, to really use this time to do it. and understand, as we talked about today, it's really just a matter of saying, today I'm going to do something, do it, and then tomorrow do it again.
Excellent. Jennifer, with lasting thoughts.
So Jeff, you said something about you're not usually stuck. You're actually, if you think you're stuck, you're probably moving backwards. And I'm a big believer that as humans, we tend to want to expand. We want to grow. We set goals. We want a bigger business next year than we had last year. And so if you've been listening to this conversation and some of it has resonated with you, where you're saying, I don't think I've got the right mindset, or I don't think I have the best sales skills that I'm capable of, or I don't think I'm prospecting and marketing the way I should, and you're aware of that, that's a great first step, is that you're aware that there's a challenge, and that's your brain saying, hey, you're capable of doing bigger and better things. So take that awareness and get very binary, very clear on what the skill is that you are lacking. Is it, I don't know how to prospect and therefore I need a script? Or is it, I don't know how to sell, I've got enough leads, but I don't know how to sell? Get very, very clear, and then just ask yourself the binary question: can I get better at this? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then learn that skill, because you owe it to yourself. And I've got a story that would take too long to tell, but the bottom line is, I don't want you to get to the end of your career, end of your life, and have regrets, because those are not fixable. There is no time machine. We can't go back and live life again. So if we've kind of scratched a little bit of an itch where you're saying, okay, there's something I need to do to better myself, then take action on that. Don't lean back and don't lay back and wait for a better time or a different time. Time is now. Jump at it. Read one of the books. Listen to some of these podcasts. Listen to some mindset training, some sales training. There's so much good information out there. None of us have an excuse for not solving and not getting to a better version of ourselves at a higher plane. So just take action.
Awesome. Paco?
Only thing I could say is, no matter where you are in this journey of yours running a business, the easiest and the most fulfilling way to accomplish a day is setting a task list. There's nothing better than being able to put a task list, whether it's calls, emails, interactions, reaching out to your current clients on upsells, just saying hi. Planning out your day will always give you the satisfaction at the end of the day that you've completed your task and you took the time out to plan it. Then you kind of going through the day and wondering, what did you do? And that's one of those where task list for me has always been a key piece, especially those that are booked in a calendar, and holding myself accountable as those reminders come up, and completing the day and looking back and knowing what I did.
That's an excellent point. And I think a lot of people, I will jump on that bandwagon too and say, don't beat yourself up if you don't get the things accomplished that you need to get accomplished. I think a lot of times we overreach, and I know I've done that in the past myself, where I want to get all these different things done. And the reality is, I'm not going to be able to take the brain power, the time, or whatever to get those things done that day. But if you can pick up a, level 1, 2, 3, number one, I absolutely have to do. Number two, it's right there. It could go either way. And number three, if I get it done, that's a bonus. It's icing on the cake. If I don't, it's not a big deal. And understand that you have to put that as a mindset in the beginning. And one of the things that I did a while back, because I find myself with all the different things that I do, I've been a calendar person for the last few years, and I will schedule a lot of things on my calendar. But then I have a task list of things that need to get done that maybe don't fit in a particular regulated time slot in my calendar. And so what I will do is I use Google Calendar. So when I sit down at my desk in the morning, I will bring my web browser up with my calendar. And right on the right-hand side of that, there's Google Tasks. I use an Android phone, so everything kind of syncs and works together. And my Google task list is right there. It's not a great task list. It's an okay task list, but I can move things around, put them in any order that I want. And what I will do is, my goal in my calendar is, I will, on certain days, I will answer emails, and then I will check one task off my list. Now, you can have 2 tasks, 3 tasks, whatever you can do during the day, but just understand you need to start somewhere. And sometimes you might get more tasks done than just the one, but it's a good feeling when at the end of the day, as Paco was saying, if you get that task, whatever your goal was, you get that task off the list. And here's the other important thing about tasks. The reason you have a list of sorts, task list or otherwise, you could use Notepad, whatever. There's a lot of studies to actually writing things down. And a lot of times I will use paper and pen or paper and pencil and write some things down. But you want to get this stuff off of your brain. And so what I will do is I always have a pad of paper or notepad in my desk. I will write those things down, and then I will transfer them to my task list at a later date via my phone, web browser, whatever I'm doing at the time. And so that makes it a just an easier transition to get that stuff off of my mind, so I'm not thinking about it. Because here's what happens: we have so many things that we do that we'll forget, and we'll beat ourselves up, and we'll feel bad because we forgot to do something that needed to be done. And so here's the one thing I will say: there's a lot of different things out there that you can learn from many different people as far as task lists and how to organize your life and all that kind of stuff. You have to find the things that are going to work for you. All of our brains are unique. You know, some things are a little stronger than others, but you've got to take that time to go, I tried this, it didn't work, but I tried this and this is working, and this is what I'm going to stick with. I guarantee you will find something that will work in your life. And you just need to keep trying over and over again until you get to that point. And then you'll be like, okay, my day's done. I got all this stuff done and I'm happy, but I didn't try to overburden myself with, 20 different tasks or, 50 different tasks, whatever it is. There's some ridiculousness out there that I'm just like, really? Hey, I applaud you, but yeah, you're not getting most of those done. That's just not happening. Anyways, I appreciate you guys coming out on the show today, and I'm going to go ahead in reverse order here, or, backwards order, or whatever, any type of order. I'm going to change it up. Jennifer, if people want to find out more about you and what you're up to, and this is your time to, tell people about your business and all that kind of stuff, where would they go?
So I'm going to send you over to my roadmap. So it's cybersecurityroadmap.com. It is literally a 30-day free roadmap to take you from cybersecurity zero to cybersecurity hero. So it is everything around packaging, pricing, philosophy, sales, mindset, marketing, again, in 30 days. So it is phenomenal. That's a great way to start to get into my world and my ecosystem. You get an invitation to my Facebook community, but that's going to be the best place to get started, cybersecurityroadmap.com.
Awesome. We will have that in the show notes. Thank you very much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Mr. I don't know what we'll call you, the Fabs. We'll call you the Fabs for right now. Where would people find out more about your products and services and what you do?
Yeah, so my my day job is at Zorus Tech. It's zorustech.com. We have a product called Archon. We're a channel-only company. It's a cybersecurity product for the channel. And yeah, we're doing some really cool stuff. And then for me, I also do sales training, which I had said before. I do one-on-one training with sales people and sales teams. You can send an email to john@johnfaziojr.com for that. But yeah, just love to have a conversation with you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me on. And hopefully I can see you all at TechCon.
That would be awesome. And we're definitely planning on that. All right. Great to have you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Paco Lebron, where could people find out more about you?
Well, I think the Foz kind of mentioned where you can see me physically is September 25th through the 27th. You'll see me in Grand Rapids at TechCon Unplugged, or you can tune into this fine programming every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here, Paco, as always. It was a fun ride. You can watch the show live and you hang out in the chat room over on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You can also subscribe using your favorite podcatcher so you never miss an episode. I want to thank you for subscribing to the show. We'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.